They think that if you go in there, that's it for you. After that, you're gone, kind of like blowing out a candle. And then I'd be in this hallway having this conversation with someone else. I'll give you $100 if you go in there right now. That's a line from SCP-4913, one of the 5 skips we're covering in the Week 22 recap on SCP Cafe. Let's go. Welcome back to SCP Cafe. I'm your host, Blue Soul, SCP Wiki moderator, chat operator, subreddit moderator, author, loving husband, dog petter, Tottenham Hotspur supporter, Cologne aficionado. What else we got this week? Rocket League Platinum 3. I'll have to think about it a little bit. I'm really tired today, guys. Work has kicked the absolute shit out of me. But we have a lot to get into this week. It was a short week. We only had 6 days worth of skips to cover because my weekend's going to be really crazy. So despite that, we had a lot of skips still in scope for the week. So a lot to discuss. Before we get into actually discussing skips, I do again want to give a big thank you to Moderator for the track Space Vandals off the album The World Within. That's available at moderator.bandcamp.com, as well as Spotify, The Usual Suspects. It's available on YouTube. That's an actual artist-provided YouTube video. Check out the album. It's a really damn good album, honestly. You're not gonna be disappointed if you like the intro music that we've got here. Not a lot of cafe news yet. I do have some things I'm working on. I'm not quite ready to announce them yet. In the meantime, until I am ready, the O5 keycards are still on sale until tomorrow. End of the sale will be end of May. So you've got until Friday evening, and those will go back up to their regular price of $8.95, but they are $4.95 for about another 24 hours. So if you haven't picked one up yet, jump on them while they're good and cheap. And on the subject of things that we're not quite ready to announce yet, I have gotten permission to at least announce that there will be an announcement for a new contest. Likely before the Week 23 show, it will be listed and made available on the front page of scpwiki.net. I know what it is. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. I think there's going to be a lot of good content generated by it, and I'm really excited, and I think you will be too. And that's really about it. Patreon was flat this week. No new members, but really appreciate my existing members. And additionally, one other thing I did want to kind of remind people of, in case you missed it, I did release Making a Monster Season 1, Episode 1. That went out back on Tuesday, just a couple of days ago. If you missed it, it's available on all the usual suspects. It won't be front and center on scp.cafe by the time you're hearing this, because, the show will be. But if you scroll down just a hair, you will see it, and you can also access it from the sidebar. It is its own category worth of stuff, and it's about 50 minutes, and it talks about coming up with ideas, and we run through an exercise. I come up with some good ones, and I think it's going to be really, really good, not just for new writers, but I think you can always learn something from how other people operate. It's one of the really cool things about the chat, about Site 19 and, the offshoot chats like the Critters, of being able to understand people's thought processes of what drives them, what motivates them, and what goes into their work. So that's something that you can see at least my side of the story in Making a Monster, which is now available on scp.cafe and all other channels. All right, enough about all that stuff. Let's get into Week 22. Despite this only being a 6-day selection criteria, there were 13 skips in scope, and what was interesting this week is a lot of them, I found out later, were fairly low rated. I don't know if it was just all the commotion with it being like a holiday weekend, maybe people out and about doing summer vacation stuff. Whatever the case, there weren't a lot of votes on it. It wasn't that any of them were bad, it was that there just hadn't been a lot of eyes on a lot of these works, and I have selected 5, and 3 of them are technically first-time pieces. 2 of them are the artist, the artist, well, the writing's an art. I meant to say author, but we'll say artist because I already started that. They are the artist's first 2 works ever on the wiki. They're both in scope and both going to be covered on the Week 22 recap. We're going to get things started. SCP-4730, Earth Crucified by Nameless Mediocre. This was Nameless Mediocre's first work. I have one more of theirs to cover later today. This is quite long. I debated on whether or not to make this Long Boy of the Week, but it's really good. And given there was a bit of a, let's say, a disparity between the stuff that I picked, I thought everything else was a little ways down in terms of the stuff that I found really interesting and really wanted to get into on the show. So I'm not giving it the Long Boy treatment. We're gonna really get into it. So this piece has an object class of Keter and sort of a fancy header image here that goes into it. Pretty much everything they talk about in the header does get used in the work. Site responsible, Site 70. We have a director, Croshaw, a research head, Mochizuka Nozomi. That name comes up later in the work. An assigned task force of New 7. And we have level 4 clearance required as well. There are 3 images, and I actually had the author reached out to me about a week ago asking about if I had an image of a level 4 security keycard, thinking that I sold those. I don't. And I didn't. He said it was for a work they were working on, and we actually get to see. I guess he found one. So we've got a blacked out image of a level 4 secure access card. I do sell some key cards, by the way, over at store.scp.cafe, just not this one. So we have a level 4 security key card. It's black with a white stripe in the middle and blacked out area for what's probably some sort of name or credentials on it. Below that, we have an image of what looks like a factory next to a pond of some sort. It's like a rocky bank, very obviously a man-made bank and pond, and a little parking lot out front, and the caption reads, Main Containment Facility of Site 70. So we've got a hiding in plain sight thing going. There is barely visible an American flag in here, so this does also appear to be in the States. And then our third image is what looks to be a military-looking squad. They're holding... I'm not much of a gun nerd to my untrained eye. These are, light assault weapons. Maybe an AR-15. Just that everybody's decked out with scopes, and everybody's got their full camo and helmets and all that good shit on. And the caption here reads, Security camera image of SCP-4730-3 unit moving through the Site 70 main containment facility in Incident 4730A. So there's actually a lot going on in this caption that we come back to over the course of the story. This -3 unit. So this is a unit related to the skip itself, and this is a still that we saw during an incident. The procedures are about 2 paragraphs, and they set a fairly high-stakes picture. The gist of it is that all containment areas at the site are to be kept at least 300 meters away from any door requiring level 4 or higher clearance, and also need 50 centimeters of steel obstructing direct line of sight between those doors and the containment areas. MTF New 7 needs to have a troop of at least 120, in addition to the standing armed guard force of 1,000 at Site 70. And all members of Site 70 personnel, this is interesting, are given access and are required to read all level 4 or lower information concerning all SCPs contained on site. That's quite a diversion from how we normally go about sort of siloing knowledge away. Additionally, areas around affected doors are guarded with mounted weaponry and staffed as appropriate for weapons and tactics currently used by the -3. Longer periods of time between skip activations warrant additional guards and firepower per the Station New 7 Captain's advisement. So -3 apparently military, they're capable, and we have to counter them and sort of take into consideration that the longer they're dormant, they're probably up to no good, and we have to plan for that and accommodate it. So we get into the description. The SCP designation is given to an anomaly that affects a randomly chosen level 4 or higher security card at Site 70 somewhere between every 2 and 40 days, and the anomaly activates upon use of a level 4 door. When this happens, a portal, and the portal is designated -1, is opened to an alternate universe that is -2, and on the other side of the portal is a heavily armed force designated -3. What we know about -3 entities is that they are genetically and anatomically human. These -3 instances engage with our guards in armed combat. With varying technology and tactics, they traditionally, or typically I should say, use Gauss weapons as well as combat drones, and have also utilized biological, chemical, anomalous, and radiation-based weaponry on rare occasions. These guys are no joke. When -3 encounters a Site 70 research person with clearance 4 or above, they will attempt to apprehend that person and bring them back through the portal into their alternate universe. And if this -3 squad encounters an SCP contained at Site 70, they will attempt to capture and bring them into that alternate universe as well. So we don't really know why they're doing this. We could make some guesses, but there's nothing yet to indicate who these people are or what they want. What we have next is a notice, and this is sort of centered with a different color background to stand it off from the rest of the piece, that it's a notice from the new 7 battery captain that is basically says that they've received a lot of complaints about the amount of required reading at Site 70, and the list of entities contained here alone should justify our insistence. The next time one of these cards activates and a -3 puts a 50-kilogram slug through Black Box's enclosure, I want even the damn janitors to know how to contain it. If you need a further reason to not die horribly, take a look at the below. Read the procedures. And that is signed from our stationed new 7 commander. Now, the rest of the work takes place within 2 collapsibles. The first one indicates that you're accessing this document from outside Site 70, so level 4 or higher clearance is required. We are apparently level 5 according to the collapsible, so we can view logs. This collapsible is quite long. It's a set of video transcripts, and this is the bulk of the actual narrative of the work. This is a video log. This is our first encounter with 4730. We had an emergency broadcast log that basically automatically become generated due to a door being opened. This is researcher Mochizuka, who is able to discreetly activate her emergency recorder and transponder upon contact with the -3. So she is being escorted through the portal. There are a bunch of drones that come out of the portal. They're described as octopedal and approximately 20 centimeters tall. Between on the other side of the portal is ballistic reinforced plating, and there's people spilling out of this portal running into our reality dimension, whatever you want to say. 2 high caliber Gauss rifle nests are visible before our researcher is brought through a checkpoint staffed by other -3 members. And the first thing we have is scribe native for cataloging universe 2 alpha 53. We come back to that 2A53 quite a bit, and there's gunfire overheard, and the other -3 at the checkpoint says, "Roger that. Proceed to interview cell 75T." So our researchers strapped on a cot and escorted through the checkpoint into a red painted hallway. They ask what's going on, and one of the -3s says, "Quiet native." Interesting. So we've got some vernacular here that they're using about presumably us, and not just us, the Foundation, but us in this baseline reality that we're working in. They're greeted by an interviewer, and the interviewer says, "I'm sure you're confused. Let me, assure you your assigned facility will be cared for by far more capable containment specialists." Mochizuka asks, "Where am I?" And the interviewer smiles and extends a hand and says, "Welcome to the Greater Foundation." We're here to alleviate your former employers of the anomalies that burden them. Can you tell me about the anomalous items, entities, or concepts contained at your site? Ooh, it's a lot to take in. The trouble here is that these guys are very obviously very capable. So Mochizuki asks why she should comply, and the interviewer responds, because it will limit the number of potential casualties from our efforts. And she asks, anyway, what if I refuse? And interviewer is holds a finger to their ear like they're listening through a headset and speaks into their shirt. Says, 2A53 shows continued resistance. Submitting request to label 2A53 as Keter. And Mochizuki asks, wait, is 2A53 my home? I need some answers here. Interviewer is having none of it. Says, tell me about the most dangerous anomalies contained by your organization. Mochizuki says, I need something in return for that information. The interviewer says, while we do take care not to upset more dangerous anomalies upon initial containment, we're not beyond letting them do our work for us. We've uncovered valuable information, anomalies, tech, natural resources from universes that have undergone what I believe you call K-class scenarios in the past. We can do it again. I would prefer to work towards a more mutual outcome. You tell me about the most dangerous things in your site, and I will help ensure we don't have to pick the valuables out of your world's rubble. We will get the information from you one way or another. We have very effective methods. So that's between a rock and a hard place for our Mochizuki, who sighs and responds $29.95 and $30.13. These are both links to live works on our wiki. And our interviewer speaks into the shirt, says query on 2A53 $29.95 and 2A53 $30.13. Understood. Dispatch MTF seismologists and MTF Rembrandts to Universe 1F79 Site 22. The interviewer says, thank you for your assistance. You'll be placed in holding pending future questioning. So these -3 grunts enter the room again and take Mochizuki away, wheeling her out, and the video is getting staticky, but we have a few seconds of clear video as Mochizuki passes a window. Outside the window, it's clouded with thick clouds. They obstruct all sunlight, and it's continuously raining. There's flashes of lightning, and the lightning illuminates these cross-shaped mining installations drilled into what appears to be the totally lifeless crust of a planet, and these stretch all the way to the horizon. So it's a really, really cool mental image here that, this Foundation works in on a dead planet, or a planet that they're leeching everything from. After a while, the feed returns, and there's a big humanoid containment cell. There's catwalks above it that are occupied by these -3 grunts. The cell holds about 200 people, and most of these people are in some sort of lab gear, anywhere from lab coats to full body exosuits. There's a big window on the right side, and multiple humans there are gathered in religious prostrations before a painting of a mini-armed figure. And the -3, one of them says, dump her, the natives here can orientate her. So Mochizuki is released from her bindings and stood upright. She looks back as the -3 entities exit through the door. The video feed cuts out as the door closes, and that ends our first log. We have a note at the end of it that says that STP Black Box, as well as 3013 and 2995, were lost during the incident. -3 units took over. They took over half the site before Epsilon 11 Nine-Tailed Fox arrived after an hour and 43 minutes. And they arrived by halo drop, high altitude, low opening, and entered the facility via the roof. They forced the -3 troop back through the portal and launched a stealth surveillance drone through the opening before the portal closed. So that ends that log, and I think it did a really good job of giving us a lot of narrative in a single log. A lot of the time, people are, tempted to drag this out and, dribble out little pieces of it. There's still pieces to come, but the overwhelming majority of the things you need to know are laid out in a believable format. And I think that speaks very highly to to this author and to the quality of the dialogue. Now, the second log is a full 3 months after the first. It is an interrogation log, and this is actually from our side. We are interrogating a captured -3 instance. We don't get into how we captured them. It's honestly not relevant. But we did, and we asked them for their name, and they respond, MTF Zeta 1A22, Door Knockers member 89, Victor Bravo 55. We asked, do you have a more personal name? And they respond, before joining, I was named Mikhail. And we said, well, Mikhail, I'm betting you can guess why we're questioning you here today. And they respond, it won't make a difference. Whatever answers you get out of me, they won't help you. Nothing can. We ask, what makes you so certain of that? And they respond, your organization, your universe, is hardly unique. It's just another speck of sand about to be poured into the kiln. And our director responds, you'll have to forgive me for not sharing your hopelessness. And -3 says, whatever helps you sleep. Enjoy the ignorance while you can. We ask, what's your organization's intent with our universe? And -3 says, containment. You have nasty things. You can send those nasty things elsewhere. We don't like nasty things popping up in our realities. We've already logged at least one case, a particularly bad one, breaching out of your universe. So we come here to take them all away, put them somewhere safe. Well, safe for us, at least. And we respond, safe for you. -3 says, they have to go somewhere. These somewheres are someone's home. Then there's the problem of resources. We don't offer our services for free because they're far from free to provide. And it says, our director asks, what kind of resources do you require? And they respond, the same that all kinds of containments do. Raw materials, energy, people, Starts off with just a few shipments of some rare earth metals, helium-3, D-class, that sort of stuff. Before you know it, we have mining platforms drilled into your planet's crust until we can sift out the valuables directly from your mantle. And this is a device that's a hole drilled into the Mohorovic discontinuity where a planet's liquid mantle meets the crust. And this is what they do. So if you think back, we had these big cross-shaped mining rigs. They're, the implication here is that they are going all the way down to the mantle, extracting rare earth metals and all sorts of valuable stuff straight from the liquid mantle. And you can imagine the sort of cataclysmic consequences that would have on a planet. So we'll move on here. We ask if the universe has put up resistance to your actions, and they respond, of course. They try everything. Armed guard forces, nuclear attacks. Some even send an anomaly or two through. Doesn't make a difference. In the end, their world gets reduced to endless rows of crosses and a planet filled with anomalies, staffed by prisoners to feed them. A containment reality, we call them. So that's interesting. If you subscribe to the theory of, multiple universes, then this is one really, really, really big SCP Foundation that has got their fingers in so many pies and containing so many anomalies that they have decided that for, the greater good, and this is a question of ethics, whose greater good is it? Well, they have the power to make this happen in any event, that they can basically banish skips to alternate realities and not really give a shit about the denizens of said reality. So there's some cool stuff going on here, this greater foundation, and it gets altogether creepier as we keep going. We ask if their organization operates out of any one reality, a single point of origin, and the -3 says, I guess there has to be one, right? And we ask, do you not come from your Foundation's home universe? And -3 says, no, mine was a pretty typical containment reality. Grew up on the moon after my grandparents moved there when the Americans invaded Stalingrad back in the 40s, or was it the 60s? We made contact with the Greater Foundation sometime in the late 90s, I think. I joined them to escape the homestead once the crosses started popping up in the craters. And we asked, do you remember if a designation was given to your home universe? 1T something. I used to visit there, didn't I? And Croshaw says, you said your universe was typical. Did something happen to it? And Ashley says, can we talk about something else? My memory of home has been fuzzy and in a way I don't like. And we say, of course, have you encountered anyone you believe to be in an executive position in the Greater Foundation? That's a good question. Thinks about it and goes, not that I can recall. Only people I remember are D-class, scribes, and other MTF members. So he goes, site commanders, overseers, ethics committees, administrators? Any of these words ring a bell? Nope, none. So we ask, who do you receive orders from then? And -3 says, well, we get them over the Foundation relay system. Lists of universes, required MTFs, expected anomalies to encounter, and where to take them. And we ask, have you gotten any sense of an overarching purpose behind these orders? -3 says, extract, exploit, expand. Take care of the nasties, make way for the crosses, and proceed to the next reality. So this is pretty good. So we asked, have you ever seen any of these crosses up close? And -3 says, no, the scribes say they're fully automated. And we ask, well, where do they come from? Are they manufactured on site? And the -3 appears to be distraught at this question. Their hands are shaking, and they're quiet for a few seconds. And then finally he goes, they just are. You know, the crosses just appear on the horizon one morning, and people start to leave the reality. That's about the same time we start moving the nasties in. So that's interesting. We ask, can you estimate how many realities have undergone such an exodus? -3 says, I have no idea. I've lost count of the universes with crosses. I can't even tell you the last time I saw one without them. Well, except ones like yours. That will change soon enough, though. And our director says, let's move on. I thank you for your cooperation thus far, I must admit. I was expecting to have to use more forceful means to collect this information, and -3 says, well, nothing I can tell you would actually help you, and nothing anyone can tell you would help you. We're a god compared to a single reality like yours, a hungering, righteous deity. Organization will run through yours, and nothing but crosses and storms will remain. No light, no hope, unless you join us. I'm saving myself unnecessary pain by cooperating with you. You should consider the pain you could save your world by cooperating with us. And Croshaw asks, are there any anomalies your organization takes a particular interest in? -3 says, yeah, deities. You know, gods. Both big and little g. And Croshaw says, how does your organization contain gods? -3 says, oh, many different ways, mind games being a big one. I'm only trained in containing lesser spirits and gods, though. Village deities, idols, fetishes, and the like. And Croshaw asks, are you familiar with how they contain more powerful deities? And -3 says, nope, only where they go for final containment. And we ask, where's that? -3 says, nowhere. What do you mean by nowhere? Well, a scribe would be able to better explain it. From what I remember of my own training, we classify something a universe if it's at least broadly familiar to our own. It has to have mass, energy, time, space, information, things like that. When we find a place that doesn't, we just label it nowhere. And the implication here is that they are banished to nowhere. And we asked, does that actually work? And -3 says, yeah, God has yet to ever pop back out from my memory. And we ask, with what frequency do you encounter nowhere? And -3 says, well, back when I was a recruit, it was some time ago, we were lucky to find 1 or 2 instances a year. Last month, we encountered 12. So the frequency's been increasing. Has your organization noticed any correlation or trend to this? And -3 says, look, man, I'm just the person they shove a gun to and tell to go round up monsters. If I was the kind of person that would have that information, I wouldn't be the kind of person you could capture. Our scribes are kept really safe. So, our director says, has your incursions into other universes increased by a similar rate during that same period of time? Do you believe the appearance of the crosses has anything to do with the increased encounters with nowhere? And -3 kind of stares at him and says, I don't like what you're implying, Native. And you go, my apologies. If you can answer for the record, and gets cut off. Says, next question. And Croshaw says, he asks, has your organization ever encountered something it cannot contain? And 3 just scoffs, says, no, that's just silly. And we ask him to elaborate. And he says, we've seen it all, contained it all. If there was something out there strong enough to resist us, it would have destroyed us by now. No, just infinite universes filled with things we've encountered before. Croshaw says, and nowhere. And replies, yeah, and nowhere. And that's the end of the log. This is also really good. This lays out their motives. Their motives seem to be highly self-serving. And there is, this open question that Croshaw very, he comes around to very intelligently on trying to make connections between these crosses and empty, voids in realities and all of that. So an interesting log that I think does add a good amount of depth to the piece. We have one more log in this collapsible. It's a video transcript. This is a good 3 months after the previous interrogation, and this is back from Mochizuka's perspective. The signal reactivated. This is a full 10 months now after first contact in that first incident. This is from the video drone that we managed to sneak through, that Ninetail Fox snuck through, and it portrays Mochizuka, but she looks quite different at this point. She's been completely shaven. She's covered in signs of physical trauma. There's burn marks, both recent and healed, burn scars, facial disfigurements, limb disfigurements that indicate blunt force trauma, several scars appearing to be made by lacerations. But Mochizuka's talking. She's in good spirits, and says, "I knew it was one of ours. Hey, Cheng, come take a look. I told you it was worth the broken finger." And another person enters the picture. This is researcher Cheng of Site 70. But interestingly, they have yet to be captured by a -3 instance. So this may be a Cheng from an alternate reality. And Cheng says, "I keep telling you, I don't think we're from the same place. Looks just like the ones the MTFs of my universe use, though. Is it still on?" And she says, "The lights are still blinking. It was crawling right towards me before Eric's gang smashed it. Goddamn barbarians. It's going to be all right, little buddy. You noticed my transponder, didn't you?" And Cheng says, "We should take it away from the window. The Malidras tend to get a bit jumpy around Foundation tech." And at this point, there's a male voice. It's off screen. And this is in all caps. And it says, "Assemble, dear flock. I received a report of viscera from Satan's corpse intruding upon the Lord's home. Let us pray to he who travels the path of unending Golgotha," which was the site of Jesus' crucifixion. So that's creepy. And Cheng says, "Come on, Eric's rounding up his zealots." Mochizuka grabs this drone and turns the camera towards the cell block's window. There's a male figure giving a sermon through a megaphone in front of a large painting made on the glass. This painting portrays a multi-armed, multi-handed humanoid. They have a large disc-shaped head surrounded by runes painted as though to look they are aflame. The image is, they're sitting cross-legged above the words, "Satan is slain, creation is his." And this is surrounded by scaffolding that's made out of bed frames, clothing, and plastic bowls and plates that are bound together by dried human feces. That's gross. There are men kneeling before this image. They're engaging in self-flagellation with improvised flogging implements. There are women dressed as nuns, retailored lab coats collecting the blood produced by this self-flagellation in plastic bowls, bringing it up to the window. Lightning flashes in the background, showing a cross-shaped mining structure about 1 kilometer away. It's big enough to dominate the view from the window despite its distance, and the mural is juxtaposed to appear that it hangs from the center of the cross. So this is all very, pretty spooky imagery we've got here, and they paint a nice picture of, these are basically prisoners within this reality. This reality is not a very pleasant one. So at this point, Mochizuka is taking the opportunity, since this drone is working, to document where they are. And she says, "Item, SCP-4730, object class, Keter, to make the greatest understatement in the multiverse. Containment procedures, I have no clue. Nuke every level 4 security door? They'd likely just switch to a different door type if you did. Description, SCP-4730 is whatever happened to open that portal to this hellscape. Entities in charge here claim to work for a greater foundation and have seemingly endless natural and anomalous resources. Interviews conducted with other humans taken prisoner here indicates this greater foundation operates across thousands of universes," and gets cut off by who is now labeled as Eric. And Eric says, "We do not speak the devil's language in the Lord's house, harlot." And Mochizuka shouts back, "Have your freak god use one of its many arms to shove your dogma straight up your ass, Eric. Or better yet, how about it gets its lanky ass down here from on high and save us? Oh, what's that? I'm not hearing any angelic choirs. I loved this line. I almost used this for my lead in. So they're fed up with the state of things. So the camera feed at this point, the sword pans. There's a group of about 14 people in bloodied robes fashioned from lab coats. They're approaching from about 15 meters out. A flashbang drops between them and explodes. Light and sound fills the video feed for a second and a half, and then there's shouting from the catwalks. And Dash 3 says, "Rioting is punished by termination, natives. This is your only warning." So the group retreats, and they're chanting in an unknown language with hands held to the sky. Eric uses the blood that was collected to touch up the painting on the window with a brush made of human hair, and the congregation's hands move to repeat various patterns. A surge of static comes over the feed until the camera's turned away from the group. So that's interesting. Mochizuki starts talking again. Says, "I'm still trying to figure out what their ultimate objective is, but the handful of what I assume are their researchers I've seen take a lot of interest in those symbols Eric's cult makes. I've tried to make some drawings of their motions, but my memory gets fuzzy when I do. I also know they want to contain everything we do in our universe and more. They'll go to quite the extent to extract the information they need," and at this point she lowers her head to reveal a circular incision around the top of her scalp that looks to have been reattached with surgical suturing. So the implication here is that they got what they needed straight from her brain. And she continues, "Doing what we do across our one world is resource intensive, but the requirements of taking the test to multiple Earths is immeasurable. The guards refer to this place as a containment reality, so I don't think they call this place home, and I know they don't treat it like one. I don't know what we can do to stop them from turning our Earth into some place like this. They seem to be able to pop through any door in our facilities that they want, from what the researchers from other universes have told me. We think it's a bit of a blind process for them, though. I don't know what you can use from that, but you have to stop them. This is the fate that awaits us if we don't. An Earth crucified." And the feed is pointed back towards the window. Eric is lashed to and hoisted upon a metal cross atop the scaffolding in front of the painting. Attendants crucify Eric, hammering spikes through his hands and feet as he performs symbols. Static in the feed increases. The patterns are more complex. The congregation chant a list of transgressions they claim to have committed as Eric's blood is collected. Pretty metal. Cheng says, "You're going to run out of its battery. I'll hide it away in the latrine for now." And Mochizuki replies, "Good thinking. I'll have it set up to passively scan for a signal from Site 70. It'll need some juice to broadcast the log." And Fee turns back to her. She says, "Whatever Site 70 ends up getting this, I hope it helps. This is all I have left in here after all." We end the log there. So this was a good way to bring it back. I think this whole thing is really well set up as far as the pacing of these logs and sort of what they set out to do. I think they nail. And that's it for that collapsible. That's by far the longest section of this work. We have a thing below that reads, "Login to record security clearance and access location information." We are accepted and view the logs, and this is O5 credentials recognized, and this is the final containment meeting log. This is from the day after this previous log was received, and the subject is for finalizing containment procedures for 4730. And apparently this was significant enough that the O5 Council was actually roused out of bed to hear this. So that's pretty cool. This is the first time I think I've really seen the O5s getting kicked out of bed to have to work. So this is the 10th, I'm sorry, this is the 5th of October, 2020-21. This is actually the same thing I talked to Nameless Mediocre about, the date format. This is one of these 5/10/2021. It could be May, could be October. In any event, the O5s are not happy. They O511 says apparently a cognito hazard because it's expunged from the record. We have this. They're trying to figure out what the hell. Why are we getting called out of bed? And Croshaw says, "I'm forwarding to you our latest recovered footage concerning 4730-2. I think you will find the imagery familiar if you've read the reports collected by Tau 5 back in 2017. We didn't talk about Tau 5 or an incident in 2017. And there's a pregnant pause here. 0510 says, you shouldn't have access to that information, Croshaw. And he replies, this won't be the first time unauthorized access has helped us. And 4 says, don't try your luck. This video is going to determine the level of your demotion. And the site commander says, well, with all acknowledgement of Director Croshaw's eccentricities, he has a point. Our containment plan works best the fewest of us made privy to it. We cannot let -2 adapt to these containment procedures. And 2 says, what about you two? You're both classified clearance level 4. And Croshaw says, I relinquish my security clearance. You're going to have to elaborate. The commander says, both Dr. Croshaw and myself have relinquished our security cards to armed teams that will open doors for us. In the event we're captured and brought through 4730-1, a surgically implanted explosive charge in my and Dr. Croshaw's heads will detonate. Subsequent New 7 and Site 70 commanders are to be shown this video log and be implanted with the aforementioned explosive implant. Okay, we get it. They can't know about this. Spell it out and let's vote. And Croshaw asks, how do you contain an organization that can appear in any of our facilities and has contained potentially countless numbers of our anomalies? An organization that has pillaged equally countless Earths to fund this endeavor. You make them think they're appearing right where they want to be and give them all the reason for caution we can. And 2 says, Croshaw, I'm looking at this list of containment transfer requests. You can't be serious. We just transferred out 90% of Site 70's containment catalog. You want to replace them with these? Interesting. We don't really know what's going on yet. But the commander, Peltry, says, implanted under each of these fully appropriately staffed containment facilities is a miniaturized nuclear warhead. Under every level 4 or higher security door is an 80-kilogram satchel of high explosives. And 7 says, well, what do we do after a weasel goes pop? Croshaw says, we rebuild the facility if we can. Treat it really sacred. If it's completely past recovery, put a guard on every other facility's security doors until we re-encounter. Wash, rinse, and repent. And 11 says, you're not actually asking us to transfer these entities, are you two? No, ma'am. You're asking us to sacrifice lives every day on containing empty space? That's correct. This won't hold them forever, Croshaw. And Croshaw says, of course not. It just has to hold them long enough. You've seen my notes on the phenomenon they call nowhere, correct? And 4 says, we have. We don't like to form containment procedures on hypotheses. And Croshaw says, we have in the past. And 2 says, with mixed results and to the most dire of circumstances, yes. And Commander says, Overseers, if anything would qualify as dire, I would hope this would be it. I don't like the idea of holding a potentially indefinite defensive campaign either, but this is the only hope we have. Croshaw says, we don't have the power to fight this kind of force as equals. We do, however, know forces that can. It's just a matter of time before they encounter one, if they haven't already. If even one leak occurs in this plan, there goes their caution and our time. Until then, I will do whatever it takes to prevent a cross from going up on our Earth. 4 asks, what actually is contained at Site 70? And Croshaw says, SCP-4730, Overseers. SCP-4730 is contained at Site 70. We go to a display 05 voting record. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yays, 3 nays. Presumably measure passes. End article. Really a lot to take in this piece. I want to compliment the ambition of this piece. For a first-time piece, it's really much easier to try and play it safe, get something out there that, just sort of hangs on, and, it's okay. There's nothing, great about it. There's nothing terrible about it. It's enough to, net you something in the single digits or, low double digits, just by virtue of there being nothing wrong with it. This is an ambitious piece. This is still only at plus 21. Like I said, there were not a lot of eyes on works this week in general. But it is not at a low rating because it was a half-assed effort. This is ambitious, and ambitious works do draw downvotes. People are going to have gripes with this work on, a number of possible fronts. Despite all that, I think this was really good. They painted a really good, bleak picture of this greater foundation that, at first it seems like they might just be, some multiverse version of the Foundation that is super powerful. They've done, they've done it all. They've seen it all. But we've got this weird clash of, a very freaky religious thing with a man apparently that's routinely crucified, and the story of these crosses that are sent in to mine for resources and basically gut an entire reality. It's a lot going on. It is really, really good. I find it highly underrated at plus 21. Long piece, but it had a lot to say. And truth be told, the 05 log is maybe the weakest point of this, but it also sets up for what we're doing about the skip going forward. So I think I'll give it a pass for its length. And for the sort of back and forth nature of it, because we've sort of established that there's some of that going on. So, yeah, no, I really like the work. Took a while to cover it, and I knew it would. But this was a really easy plus one. I had upvoted this before I even finished the work, just for the picture that's painted. Excellent job. Moving on, SCP-4667, titled I Am Become Teeth by Lanius. We have an image front and center, pretty good sized one, covers the full width of an x-ray, and this x-ray is of a mouth or a jaw, and it's got far too many teeth. It's got, I would wager, about 50 of them, growing in all directions, and if tooth stuff squicks you out, this is most definitely going to do it. The whole work is in that vein that it doesn't really bother me, but I know a lot of people do get really squicked out by teeth stuff. This will not be one of your finer moments if you are one of those types of people. This one is also a Keter. We have an image below that one of a black and white of a woman, that it's fairly distorted due to the black and whiteness and what looks to be a very grainy image. So hard to tell much about her. Dark hair, I would assume young versus old, maybe, somewhere between 15 and 45. It's a fairly grainy picture. And the caption reads SCP-4667. So our skip is a woman. And our procedures indicate that the skip is currently uncontained. That's not good. It is believed to be located in an unknown area near the North or Baltic Sea, but the tracking of abnormal tooth growth in coastal and ocean fauna is to be used to locate its precise whereabouts. Once the skip is found and contained, it is to be stationed in a standard humanoid containment chamber located about 100 meters away from any population of organisms possessing teeth. Necessary living procedures such as feeding are to be performed by a D class, which is to have their teeth pulled prior. So we're setting the stakes that don't let this chick around teeth, and given the first image that we had, we can assume she makes teeth grow. That is actually exactly what happens. 4667 is described as a mute 26-year-old humanoid female of Soviet descent. She's been diagnosed with total anodontia, which is the total lack of teeth. Organisms possessing deciduous or that's a word I don't know. It's a dental word. You know what? I'm not going to try it. Organisms possessing teeth in near proximity to the skip will be subjected to a dental transfigurative effect. The organism's teeth will slowly elongate vertically. New teeth will spontaneously grow directly from the skeletal system, starting from the jawbones, and these teeth will also elongate, eventually puncturing through the skin and internal organs. The rate of this effect is sporadic, but current theories suggest the skip is capable of partially controlling the rate of tooth growth. This effect persists after the subjects are deceased. That's interesting. Organisms affected by the skip will normally expire via tooth growths elongating through vital organs, commonly from the teeth in the lower jaw, going through the roof of the mouth and into the brain. Once effective cadavers leave the presence of the skip, these tooth growths begin to bend and grow into large, intricate models and sculptures of varying subjects. We have found, we've highlighted 6 different instances. One is a feminine winged humanoid cradling a child. This was grown out of a human male. There were multiple humanoids, all appearing malnourished in positions of anguish. This was grown out of a colony of bats. There was a larger feminine winged humanoid with her arms extended over multiple other humans. We've got a number of these that are, very simple statuesque sort of things. And it's hard to really tell over the course of this work how directly related these are to this lady or her abilities, or her origins for having these abilities. But there are quite a few, and we go from that list to there's another picture of a man with slick back hair and a beard and mustache, and he is apparently Russ Stanford, according to the caption circa 1977. This man was the leader of a GOI called the Dentists Collective of Britain. They were originally a workers' union for dentists, gradually changing their efforts towards the study of anomalous and non-anomalous practices of dentistry and genetic dental disorders. This guy was they worked with the original person that sort of created, I don't know. We say that the skip originates from the USSR. She was originally studied by Josef Jekaterina, who was a local dentist, and from there it was reported to this Russ Stanford and his GOI. Stanford requested for the skip to be relocated to his office in the UK, so this local dentist, in conjunction with this GOI, procured the British cargo ship SS Mavis by bribing the ship's crewmen. I don't know where they came up with the money for that, but they're anomalous dentists. God only knows. They sailed to the UK with the skip locked in the cargo hold, and during this, all the crewmen succumbed to the skip's effects, with Jekaterina and the skip disappearing. So this is how we lost the skip. So we're aware of it through sort of secondhand info here, along with a video log. We don't really discuss how we came about this video log. I think, yeah, we do recover it. So I would have liked to maybe see how we came about this video log first. Just because it's like, oh, well, there's a video log. Well, how'd we get this log? They explain it later, but there's just that little momentary confusion of, why are we going to a video log? Like we just talked about, we have a history, but how did we come up with this history? And how did we get this video log? A little bit of rearranging of the order of operations here, I think, would help with clarity in the piece. So I'm going to warn you, if tooth shit grosses you out, this is your last chance to bail and skip ahead, 10 minutes or so, 10, 15. I'm not really sure. We'll get there when we get there. But this is your final warning. So we have a number of names in this work. We've got a captain, a chief mate, a chief engineer, a second mate, a deckhand, and our dentist / impromptu ship doctor. As it turns out, his skills are needed. This starts out with discussion between the second mate and a deckhand. Apparently, they've been keeping tabs on her in the cargo hold. These two have. She's pacing, and dentist guy said she's mute. She's got no teeth. We don't know why we're hauling her, but we have to watch her. We've been standing for a while. A chair would be nice. So the second mate leaves to go find a chair. The deckhand is leaning against the wall and starts to cough, and he asks the skip, "You okay in there, lady? You need anything?" There's silence, and she goes, "Well, a nod or something would have been nice." And says, "Well, I'll go get some leftovers for from supper for you soon. Quite famished myself, actually. Coughs up an abnormally long human tooth. He looks at the tooth, looks back through the window towards the skip, and says, "Oh, thank you." He puts the tooth back in his mouth and begins loudly crunching into the tooth and then swallows it. And goes, No more. I'm good for now. Oh, well, if you insist. And we cut that log right there. So the video switches here to the bridge. This is our captain. His hand starts to cramp while steering, and his carpal tunnel. Buddy hell, this can't wait a bit. And as he picks up his pencil, a crack is heard, and he jolts back suddenly. He goes, "Fuck! Ow! 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 What was?" And his left pointer fingernail is cracked and bulging outwards. And at this point, the chief mate enters the picture and asks, "Is something wrong?" And Captain goes, "My finger, man the ship. I'm going to talk to that doctor." And he said, "Oh, what what happened?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just gonna go." So the captain enters one of the staterooms, and he goes, the dentist asks, "Something wrong with the girl?" And the captain says, No. Wendell's looking after her. My fucking nail, though." And he shows him his nail and says, "I don't know." And Jekaterina says, "I see." Pulls a pair of pliers out of his satchel. Says, "Hold still. Might hurt." And puts his hand down onto the nightstand. The dentist begins removing fingernail fragments, and underneath the fingernail, a long human tooth can be seen. And the captain says, What the fuck? What?" And the dentist says, "Hold still," and begins prying the tooth out of the captain's finger. The captain is screaming obscenities. The tooth cracks out of the finger, which begins bleeding like crazy. And dentist says, "Get bandages." And gags. "What would cause that?" And dentist says, "The girl's losing control." And the captain says, "The girl, is this why you're here? Why is she here?" And the dentist says, "I've cared for the girl for a while. She has a gift she can control, but she's losing control." And he takes a line of measuring tape out of his satchel and puts it against the tooth. And at this point, the chief engineer enters the room and says, "Hey, wait, what happened to you?" And the captain says, "This isn't the time." And he goes, "It's important. The ship, she's going too fast. The engine can't handle all this." And he's probably slacking. "Kick him out of his sig brake if you have to." And engineer says, "You got it. Hope your finger gets better." Captain says, "Now what were you saying?" Dennis says, "I know not much. The British comrade knows more than I. When ashore, he'll explain better." And Captain says, "Well, what do you know?" And Dennis says, "She grows teeth. That's all. Not even her name." And the captain says, "Teeth?" Dennis says, "Look at the teeth I pulled. How long is it now?" Captain says, 32 millimeters. And Dennis says, "The incisor should be about 22 millimeters. Captain says, "Oh, so that's what's wrong with this." Says, "The tooth is now 33 millimeters. Been biting tongue a lot as of late." Captain says, we should check on Wendell." That's the deckhand from the first time around. Dennis says, "You go. I must stay and study." So we go from here back to the bridge. At this point, we believe that this was our chief mate. They're stationed at the wheel. The trouble with it all is that they have a shitload of teeth growing out of their body, intertwining with the controls for the ship, and they're no longer moving. So the engineer is in the hallway, and upon seeing this horrifying fucking thing, he starts to back away and then faints. And a few minutes after this, assorted crackling can be heard, and a puddle of blood begins forming under him. We go from this to back to the cargo hold. Our deckhand is seen chewing. No crunching can be heard. He goes, "Has got any more?" And the second mate enters, and he says, "Oh, hey, Will, got any teeth to spare?" The mate says, "What the hell? What happened?" Wendell says, "Actually, wait." And at this point, the dialogue reads, Wendell reaches into his eye socket with two of his fingers and removes an elongated tooth carefully. He'd already ripped out his own eyes to keep eating these teeth. And he says, I still got some lying around. The captain enters. The deckhand puts the tooth into his mouth and continues chewing. The captain says, Wendell, what was that? The mate says, he's eating his bloody teeth, Boleslav. And Wendell laughs and says, it tastes better than your cooking. The captain says, what? Wendell, the girl. And that's the deckhand. And he says, oh, don't worry, I'm watching her still. And the captain says, no, she's messing with you. You're not supposed to have teeth coming out of your eyes like this. You realize that, right? And he says, since when? At this point, all of the tooth fragments in Wendell's stomach elongate, puncturing through his abdomen and his shirt. Wendell collapses. So the captain says, get the keys. We're throwing the bitch overboard. So the mate takes the keys off the deckhand, brings the keys to the door, and at this point, a tooth elongates out of the tip of his index finger, impaling his thumb and causing him to drop the keys. The skip reaches under the door and grabs the keys. The captain says, you can't unlock the door from that way. So everybody's under her spell at this point. At this point, we have footage from the cargo hold. The skip throws the key across the room. She's staring at the door. As she is staring, screaming can be heard from the other side for several minutes. Teeth elongation can be seen through the windows, and about 30 seconds later, the screaming finally stops. She looks away from the door, and the teeth outside stop growing. So the implication here is that she's controlling and intentionally growing their teeth. She moves to a corner of the room and looks at the ceiling, which is convex. The ceiling starts cracking and bulging. Teeth are then seen breaking through the roof until it collapses with the body of the first mate falling through it. It's a lot going on here. His back is severely affected by tooth growths. The roof collapses, the camera's destroyed. Back on the bridge, there's low fuel alarms going off. There's a hole present in the hallway. The skip emerges from this hole on a pillar of elongated teeth, which rises upwards. She walks off this pillar onto the bridge, where it exits onto the deck through a side door. At this point, her and the dentist are setting up a lifeboat. She enters the deck, and the dentist says to her in Russian, you know I care about you and your craft, unlike these others. I will await your reclamation. I hope my service was satisfactory. She stares at the dentist for a couple of seconds and goes back into the bridge. The dentist leaves on a lifeboat. So that's the log. And what we find later is that the Mavis washed ashore on the East Coast. Now, here's a little bit of kludge. On the East Coast of the United Kingdom, we should really nail that down to a particular country within the UK, because there are actually multiple East Coasts. This could be the East Coast of England. It could be the East Coast of Scotland. For that matter, it could be the East Coast of Northern Ireland. We don't know, and I don't think there's any reason to leave that up for any sort of question. You're assuming they were headed for England. It indicated as much earlier, so there's no real reason to, go back and sort of hedge against that, to say it was, something more vague than England, if that was where they were headed, or if that was the logical travel path, given that they were apparently, they were leaving from the USSR and, sort of went through the Straits and crossed the North Sea from, Denmark and Norway, then they were probably on a course for, somewhere in England, and that would be a logical place for them to wash up somewhere in, northern England, southern Scotland. So that's all I'm going to say there. I think that would be a little net positive to change that up. So the Mavis washes ashore. Stanford and his GOI go to the site of the shipwreck. We don't really know how they knew of the location of the Mavis at the time, and that may also be a disservice to the piece. There are multiple objects recovered at the scene: the bodies of all the crew, a photo, and a broken camera still recording. And we have a log of the recovered recording along with the recovered photograph. So the photograph is a black and white photo of a group. It looks fairly old-timey, given the date, which is 1981. I actually gave Lanius a little bit of shit for that in 19. We had color photography existed in the 80s. but he said he had, there was a reason for it, for the look and feel he was trying to convey. So this is a little bit of log between the recorder, we don't really know who, and this Russ Stanford, the head of this GOI, and the Mavis is in the background, and Stanford is running to the wreck and asks, "Are you in here?" And Stanford says, "This is the ship, right? SS Mavis. See, this is the one Yosef bribed. Did you leave already?" And the skip is now seen on the deck, and Russ is there. "Yes, Evidente, we've studied your craft, your divine work. We have heard your cries in the teeth of our patience. Not all of us forsake your gift. Not all." And she smirks. And he says, "I have done as you said. And gets cut off. At this point, a large pair of avian wings, made solely out of elongated and normal-sized teeth, unfurl from the skip's back. It's not clear what holds the wings together. Stanford says, "Oh yes, of course, for your wings. So that was why." The GOI collectively bow to her, and Stanford says, "Go make your gift clear, Evidente. Make it clear to the overlookers." The skip lifts herself into the air and flies toward the mainland. As the skip goes out of frame, the GOI collectively walk towards the direction that the skip flew in. The recorder drops the camera and does not appear to notice. The GOI is heard silently walking into the distance. After the event, the whereabouts, basically the entire GOI became unknown. The skip remains at large. End article. So we have this ending that, she's obviously highly anomalous. Maybe she's a deity of some sort. Maybe it's, maybe she's the goddess of teeth, of really, really fucked up teeth. So one thing that I'm going to kind of gripe about with this is that we, as far as I can tell, and I'm looking through it again just to see if at any point we explain how we came upon any of this, because we talk about the GOI, we talk about the video log, but then we say that the GOI is the one that recovered all the shit, and we never talk about where the Foundation comes in during this. So that is that's a problem. It's an easy fix, but as it stands, it's a problem. There's good horror for people that are freaked out by that sort of thing. It doesn't particularly affect me. I think there's some cool stuff going on with it's like a really gnarly superpower. She controls the growth of teeth, and apparently can do it really, really fast. And there's some good, sort of pain introduced of the captain and the dentist, like with pliers grabbing a tooth from out of a finger, out of a fingernail. That's like, that part's really good. But there's some basic stuff that got missed, and I feel like it was just overlooked, and it happens, but it is a notable missing piece here, and it needs to be there for the work to really make sense. As much as works do make sense, it needs that. So right now, I'm actually going to no vote this, because I can't get around that we have not laid out how the Foundation ever became involved in this work, and that our procedures are essentially nothing. We know more or less what we're going to do if we have it, but we have no indication as to how we even came up with these procedures, because there's nothing in here to indicate how we came about any of this stuff. And it's an easy fix, like I said. Fix that. I'll probably come back and +1 it, but it is something that needs attention before I can do so. Before we move on, I have a Patreon plug here from Matt W. Wants to plug the End of Death canon, as do I. It's a great canon. I mean, my take on it. But he has to say, building on what Blue Soul has said in the past about the End of Death canon, it has so much effort poured into it. A massive amount of theory crafting has gone into making some very well-written tales that hold your suspension of disbelief excellently. If the canon hub doesn't draw you in, try giving the tale In the Clutches of Life a go. In the Clutches of Life is actually the canonical starting point for the canon, so it is absolutely the place to go to get started with said canon. A link to both will be available at scp.cafe. Moving on, SCP-4810, titled Hunt Stupid Game, Win Stupid Prizes. This is by Dr. Carroll. This is actually part of IntCon. Believe it or not, IntCon is still going on. If you visit 4810, you do need to actually vote on it on the SCP Int website. There's a link to it if you hit it from the English wiki, where you can vote on it there and have it count toward the contest. We're about wrapped up on that contest, but still definitely check it out, and make sure and check out all the stuff that people have submitted there. We have an object class of Keter and quite a few procedures, actually. It's quite long. In a nutshell, we've built Containment Area 49 around this skip, particularly around -A. Direct physical access to -A is restricted to members of ATF Omicron 77. If we find an organism that we don't recognize, if it's an undiscovered species located within a 0.01, that's struck through, 0.10, that's struck through, 0.25 kilometer radius of this containment area, it's to be captured and moved to long-term containment for categorization and further study. -1, -2, and -3 are contained within Chamber 77 at this containment area. This is Applied Task Force Omicron 77. I was wondering what that A stood for. They are all the King's horses and all the King's men, and they are tasked with oversight and attempted reintegration of -1, 2, and 3. No manner of flora is to be brought into Chamber 77. So we have 3 collapsed containment procedures as well for -1, -2, and -3. Altogether, they are another 6 or 7 paragraphs. Our -1s contained in a steel crate, suspended above a container of 98% hydrofluoric acid within a vacuum tube. So there's negative pressure that will pull anything within -1 straight into the acid. -2 is kept in a tank of nutrient-rich water or nutrient-rich solution. Handling instances of -2 should be done gently with protective latex gloves. Personnel are to remain, they should not remain within direct or indirect physical contact of any -2 for more than 60 seconds within 48 hours, and any personnel that exhibit symptoms of extreme paranoia or symptoms consistent with tuberculosis, or who have been witnessed expelling insects while coughing, are to be quarantined within Containment Area 49 solitary for treatment and study. So -2 sounds pretty gnarly. Anytime you're coughing up insects, it's probably gnarly stuff. -3 is continuously monitored by EEG in order to detect fluctuations which could indicate the reemergence of vital functions. So that's interesting. That would indicate that -3 is not currently alive. It's not currently functioning. So it is to remain attached to Omicron 77 modified IV blood transfusion apparatus. It's to be supplied with 125 cc's of type O human blood and 775 cc's of deer blood every 24 hours. So whatever it is, it's part human, part deer. That's also kind of metal. -4 is located within the cellar of -A. The cellar door was found locked upon discovery and is to remain locked until ATF Omicron 77 can indicate -1, 2, and 3 have undergone a successful reintegration and are ready to integrate with -4. So we think we know what -4 is, but we are leaving that alone until such time that we're adequately prepared to handle it. So that's the procedures. There's a lot of them. Again, this seems not as high stakes as 4730, but there's a lot going on that we're being very careful about. So -A is described as a wooden hunting lodge located within a forest in Brazil. It is in a significant state of disrepair. Portions of it are totally overgrown with a statistically over-biodiverse array of flora. Interesting. -A is additionally infested with a high concentration of non-anomalous arthropods, primarily arachnids, though a significant amount of centipedes, wasps, and many other venomous insects have been reported, and over 43% of arthropods recovered from -A are of multiple undiscovered species. We are still categorizing shit that we find from -A. So we have more collapsibles here. These are -1, 2, 3, and 4 object descriptions. So we've got the containment procedures. Now we have to go back and describe what they actually are. So -1 is a white fur rug. It's a large white animal fur. It's patterned with small sections of blue fur. This blue fur shifts continuously around the rug at a rate of about 2.2 centimeters per second. I feel like you want to actually use 2 millimeters per second. It does the same thing, but significant figures and all that. So it moves around 2 millimeters per second around a large white fur rug. That's fairly slow, but still fast enough that you could see it with the naked eye. The patterns that produced by these blue patches have been reported as disturbing and unsettling by first-hand witnesses. This fur rug also generates a wide variety of arthropod-like organisms from an unknown location. They just kind of crawl out from within the object's fur, and it generates roughly 0.1 kilograms of such biomass per hour. Again, I'd probably use 100 grams of such biomass per hour. 100 grams of bugs is actually really a lot. All of these specimens that -1 produces appear to be predatory and utilize venom in their bites and stings. So gnarly stuff, and we're containing this by suspending it in a negative pressure tube over hydrofluoric acid. So that I don't know if that necessarily jives, because we talk about wanting to study these bugs, but we're also going in and basically nuking them like immediately. So that doesn't quite match up. -2. This is the designation that we've given to a collection of 326 animal bones. They are superficially similar in appearance to cervid organisms. Those are deer. That are recovered from -A. Now, the thing with -2 is that living organisms exposed to any of these bones begin to display rapid mutational growth during cell division at an increased rate proportional to the distance between the organism and the instance or instances of -2, the bones. So extended contact with these instances result in the manifestation of living, unidentified arthropods within the subject's lungs, stomach, or open locations in the chest cavity. That's metal too. We've found that complete immersion in water significantly reduces the effective distance of this -2's effect. So that's good. -3 is the taxidermied head of an unidentified animal. It resembles a large Sika deer or Japanese deer. It has white fur displaying blue patterns similar to those on the rug. -3 induces rapid, unstable genetic mutations to flora within its gaze. So it affects the plants around it, and this will cause them to produce poisonous sap. It'll affect the intake of oxygen and release of CO2. The discharge of parasitic spores, and these spores give off the same effect as -3 itself onto whatever floor it attaches to. And we describe -4, our one we're not ready for yet, as a mass of flesh and muscle tissue located within the cellar of -A. And due to the severity of -A's infestation, further analysis of -4 has been suspended. So we have two addenda here. There's an exploration log with this ATF Omicron 77, and they are approaching this house, and what we find is that the house is basically surrounded by fucking bugs and big gnarly centipedes. They're apparently gigantic fucking flying centipedes around above in the tree line, so that's scary. Not much on teeth, but big gnarly centipedes and millipedes and stuff. Yeah, those are those get me a little bit. So they notice that the walls of the building are shifting, except it's not really the walls moving. Omicron 1 holsters his weapon, grabs a flare, which he lights and throws it at the wall. It bounces off the wall and as it does, a shitload of spiders and insects fall off of it. So the wall's not moving. It's literally just covered in a thick swarm of spiders and insects. And so at this point, there's some back and forth. Like, I'm not fucking going in there. And well, eventually they do. They stack up. They kick down the door. Standard breach. At this point, there's a huge swarm of flying insects emerging from the breach. It totally obscures the camera feed for a solid 6 seconds. And after 6 seconds, audio and video are at least coherent. The interior walls are crawling with another layer of spiders and insects. The units enter. The swarm is sort of parts around the flare light, so they don't like the light. That's interesting. There are 2 hallways going to eastern and western wings, and there's a staircase to the basement. They proceed down the western side first. A hissing noise is audible over the buzzing. 4 asks, "You guys heard that, right? That voice?" And 3 says, "Voice? No, just these damn buzzing wings." And they don't hear, nobody else hears it but 4. So they pass an infested washroom and closet. They arrive in an open room with 6 chairs. 4 of them have heavily infested corpses resting on them. 1 nears the center of the room, and a thick mass of insects infesting an animal skin rug fails to withdraw from the flare light. So they don't want to get off the rug. All the other bugs don't like the light, but they don't care. The ones on the rug don't want to leave. So Omicron 1 gets closer to the rug. The camera focuses a little cleaner. We can see there's a pretty constant stream of bugs emerging from it and going back into it. So he tells 2, crate this thing up, get it outside. And 3 says, "We got something else. This body's chest is humming." And so the camera feed turns. It looks at Omicron 3, who's near a corpse. This Omicron 3 reaches out, resting his hand on the body's upper chest, and pulls a carved bone amulet from around the corpse's neck. And at this point, a winged insect resembling a large wasp starts emerging from the body's mouth. And there is more than likely a whole hive inside of this man. 3, is instructed to light a flare, collect any other occult curiosities they collected. 1 and 4 go back down the hallway towards the other side, and you hear hissing still over the background hum. And 4 says, "There it is again. It's definitely coming from the basement." And 1 instructs them to light a flare, hold position, keep listening, see if you can make any sense. And 1 goes off by themselves, goes down the eastern hall, passes several taxidermied heads. The infestation of bugs begins to thin out a little bit during the final approach to the eastern wing, and this side has a carpet of thick kudzu-like plant overgrowth, and there's a shitload of dead bugs visible within the plant overgrowth. So 1 coughs, stepping onto the overgrowth into the trophy room. There are a bunch of corpses visible, entwined with thick plant growth, and the camera moves to take in the taxidermied head of a Sika deer with blue patterned fur, the patterns of which can be observed to shift slowly. Omicron 1 is coughing more violently, causing the feed to shake, moves towards the taxidermied head and tries to pull it down from the wall. They're now wheezing and groaning. Manages to dismount the head, dropping to the ground alongside it. His breathing becomes shallow and punctuated by wheezing. A minute and 18 seconds passes before footsteps can be heard, along with faint flare light. So Omicron 4 says, "I went ahead and peeked down in the basement. Bugs are real thick down there and weren't scared of the light. Lots of millipedes. Kept sounding like something was calling out to me from inside. I couldn't get a look, just managed to peek through the small hatch built into the door. Looked like some kind of wet meat pulsing like a heart. Big-ass centipede lunged at me. I swear the fucker said my name. I think we should," and then realizes that Omicron 1's down. 4 rushes into the frame, gets Omicron 1 over their shoulder, and stands coughing as he withdraws from the room. We find later, 4's team withdraws, something's in the air. Ohm 1 is down, get out of here now. So Omicron 1 does survive, had acute carbon monoxide poison. So during this expedition, they retrieved -1, they retrieved 79 bones of -2, and Omicron 1 makes a recovery. 2, 3, and 4 go back and have self-contained respirators, and contained at this point they go in and contain the remaining listed anomalies along with the attached journal. This is our second addendum. -4 is successfully contained, and that's about all that we can hope for right now. Nothing's really happening, and for the purpose of the Foundation, that's normally good enough, but the recovered journal indicates we may have a vested interest in making it all work, hence all of the talk about reintegration of the pieces parts of 1, 2, and 3. And so we have this journal, and it is a personal journal recovered in the main lobby, and transcripts are in the same order as pages within the journal. What we get from the first journal entry is that these are hunters. They are part of the board of the highest huntsman. So potentially the highest huntsman is the group, and there's a board within it. So they set out to go after something that they previously considered a myth, Mother Nature. It's been seen by very few, said to walk the grounds of Portugal in its deepest forests and its highest mountains, travels all the time, never near civilization, which is probably why we've never seen it. It's responsible for the environment around us, and it always has been. Mother Nature looks like a deer with the whitest coat of fur in the world and golden shimmering antlers longer than any kind the world has ever seen. Its fur is covered in blue markings that constantly shift, almost like sentient tattoos, one for each journey it has completed. We're going to hang its head on the wall of Lodge 1 in the name of the hunt. So they also figure out there's a problem with their plan. Not only is it responsible for the environment, it controls it, and it can detect anything biological from about 5 kilometers away. So there's no way in hell they can get close to it. So the board is making plans to counteract its abilities. She's a tough one, Mother Nature, but the hunt is tougher. Interesting. So we have this this group of hunters that go after legends and lore and beasts of myth. That's kind of cool. Not totally unlike what the Wayward Society is doing. So the next entry, they've come up with a plan. They're going to bank on the fact that Mother Nature can only detect living things, and they're going to rely on traps, paratechnology they call it, electric nets, force field barrier traps, tons of other things. Apparently these strategists know how to get shit done. They're going to set up the traps over the forests, and they're going to update later. So we have a few more of these, and we, in the fourth entry, says we got it. We actually captured Mother Nature. And I thought about using this passage too as a lead-in, because this is really, really beautiful. I'm going to read this part verbatim. It was by one of the streams, the one we got that mermaid in that one time, actually, by one of the advanced parasnares. Its leg got caught, and by God did it give a fight. Wind kicked up, practically a storm on the spot. Birds and things were going crazy, but all the might of nature can't overcome the ingenuity of man. It was legendary. She was so much larger than we expected, easily standing at, I don't know, but it was much taller than any of us. Her antlers shimmered in the sunlight, and we put a bullet in its neck and watched as it bled out, whimpering for help. The hunt shows no mercy. The only thing that was heard was cheering. I still can't believe that we actually managed to do it. It's incredible. We finally managed to catch something powerful, something any ordinary person with a gun would be able to do. We're bringing it back to the lodge now. The board's deciding how we're going to split up its part and decorate Lodge 1 with our success. We're drinking tonight in the name of the hunt. So, from here, we our hunters are realizing this may not have been the best idea, as it turns out. So the board figured it out. We've split everything up to where the decision makers wanted them. Things just don't feel right anymore. It doesn't feel as rewarding as it did when we first accomplished the goal. It seems like a very neutral objective that we've completed. The only payoff is some shifting animal skins and some bones. And we keep finding more and more bugs, both in and outside the facility. They like to hide in the new rug. I didn't even know this many centipedes and whatever those things are lived around here. Update. Something like a centipede spider-wasp hybrid bit Raul about an hour ago. His eyes rolled to the back of his head and he started screaming loud as any of us had ever heard. Before any of us could even get to him, he dropped dead, there on the spot. The bug died shortly after. We've got some people on pest control for now. I don't know what's going on, but we need to be a lot more careful now. Maybe we didn't think this through. Gee, you fucking think? So, things are going downhill. People are dying all around this guy in terrible ways. People have bugs crawling out of every orifice, and I think I feel something crawling in my ear. I can't get it out. Bugs are swarming the corpses, eating them instantly, and retreating around Mother Nature's spread-out corpse. Anyone who gets close at this point is eaten alive. They aren't happy. I can feel it. The wasps are making nests within people's chests. The spiders are taking the deepest bites into people's necks and taking chunks of flesh with them. It's like a brown recluse, but it's instant. All of the flesh and rotting and the infection comes almost instantly. I just looked in the eyes of nature's mounted head, and I can't help but wonder, were they looking back? What have we done? We didn't kill her. We just made her scared and mad. Might be a fair estimation of the current state of things. Our last entry says everyone else is gone, dead or run deep into the jungle to die, torn apart from within. Not me, not me. I can feel one inside me now, can feel its 100 legs curling tightly around my innards. Maybe it's soothing in there. It must be, warm and dark as it is. Maybe, just maybe, it's making her feel safe. I can feel its heart beating. It's still scared, thrashing, hurting. I'm going to the cellar to rest, to have some quiet. End article. I really liked this. These logs give some room for a potential new GOI that maybe it can get some traction. There's not a ton really like this that are hunters, and like I said, Wayward has some of this going on, but it's normally a different sort of story. That you don't have the GOI being pulled down by their own hubris or poorly thought out plans. 4810 I really enjoyed. There's a lot of procedures, there's a lot of build up, we've got a lot of disparate things going on, but given the premise and what our big reveal is, I think it all makes sense. It is interesting, this isn't the only Mother Nature skip even in Series 5, so there is a bit of a clash of headcanons of which one you might consider canonical, but you could also just hand wave that away, that say this isn't actually Mother Nature, this is something that some anomalous deity or aspect or something that is colloquially called Mother Nature, and you're out of the woods and on the way again. Yeah, really good. No real gripes at any point of this. It does everything it needs to do. It doesn't try to explain a lot of things and take too much magic out of this. I think it struck a good balance there. This was an easy +1, and it's actually fairly lowly rated at the moment. It's only at +14, and gotta say, like I said, this week, just a lack of eyes on just about everything. I would take a look through recently created and just kind of give everything a look, see what you think. This one for me was an easy +1. Moving on, the second of two skips by Nameless Mediocre this week. Actually, the second of two skips by Nameless Mediocre, period. This is SCP-4264, titled Lesson Plans for Calhoun County. There are no images in this work, and it has an object class of safe, and procedures that are all of 2 sentences. The skip is contained in a standard anomalous objects locker. Any alteration to the skip is to be drafted by a team of Foundation scientists in the appropriate field. So that's interesting, an alteration to the skip. So, and we will sort of elaborate on that as we go. The skip is described as a set of lesson plans for Hampton High School in Calhoun County in the state of Arkansas, printed on U.S. letter-size paper. These plans have multiple example questions that often posit improbable and occasionally impossible circumstances. We have a couple of sentences here that explain a little bit of how the skip works, altering the variables and sorting conditions and questions written on the skip on these sheets will take effect accordingly when taught. Changes made to other portions of the lesson plan will render that instance inert, and copies made of the skip do not share the original's anomalous properties. So I was going to take issue with some of this because I generally dislike providing these answers before they're asked, but it does make sense from a basic, this is what we found out about it so far. Nothing here really spoils anything, and it doesn't take up so much space that I think I have a huge problem with it. We have a discovery log, and it's only a paragraph. The skip was discovered on the 17th of August 2015. Foundation satellites detected an explosion equivalent to 20 tons of TNT in Calhoun County, Arkansas, at the home of one John Perrin, a newly hired math and physics teacher at Hampton High. Agents were dispatched, and 2 corpses were discovered. Both of them were identified as John Perrin. The pages of what we're collectively calling the skip appeared at the site in irregular intervals over the course of the next 32 hours or so. And we have our second addendum, which is a list of recovered questions sorted by the date written on the documents by the presumed author. So I'm going to set this up because I don't want to go into some of these because they're all word questions, and God, I hated these in math class. But the gist of it is we have the effect that we know so far is that anything written on these pages, no matter how improbable or impossible, will actually happen in reality. So we have a sample question about bird hunting and how many wild birds somebody could bring back. We have a thing about a guy drinking heavily and trying to figure out how many brain cells he has left. We have one about a man in a rush to get home from work driving recklessly and ramps off a hill and asking how far away does the car land given the speed. And there's a pause. There's a little break here in the date where perhaps there's the realization that this actually came to pass. The next one is about a man. His name is Frank. It says Frank's father hits a crude oil deposit of 20 million liters on his land, ending a life of poverty for Frank. But during drilling, he accidentally breaches an aquifer in the process. Water drains out. Frank's dad can pump out 30,000 liters a day from this deposit, and it basically and continues the question. And we have another one after that saying, prove the Riemann hypothesis and win the class the $1 million prize. This is an unsolved mathematical question about the distribution of prime numbers. We have here's where we actually start to get some narrative. The question reads, Agent Tucker of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission is investigating the ecological collapse of several avian species in the area. While at the top of a 100-meter tall tree inspecting nests, the agent's selfie stick is struck by lightning, imparting it with a charge of -10 coulombs. The agent manages to drop the rod while the second bolt of light, imparting -15 coulombs, hits his patrol truck directly beneath him simultaneously. What's the electrostatic force applied between the selfie stick and his truck? So we have not really a lot of explanation here, but we go on to another question. Nancy Harris is on the run from the cops after a CPS investigation into domestic violence against her children. She takes a sharp turn at 120 kilometers an hour as it starts hailing, which reduces the coefficient of kinetic friction between her tires and the road to μk equals 0.12. Does she run off road and receive justice? We go again. Agent Elion, we have a footnote here. This was an embedded Foundation agent within the southeastern branch of the GOC North America Division. This was a GOC operative. He claims to work for the United Nations. He's returning to his hotel after vigorously interrogating a teacher for 3 hours. For reasons unknown, the force the ground applies to his feet in response to gravity fails, and Agent Elion plunges straight through the ground. Assuming he's roughly spherical and experiences a drag of K equals 0.38 kilograms per meter, how long will it take Agent Leon's corpse to come to a state of rest at the center of the Earth? 2 weeks pass. John is attempting to break several students out of an illegal detainment at a temporary holding facility in Calhoun County. He throws a 20-kilogram boulder at a series of defenses consisting of one chain-link fence capable of withstanding a force of 15,000 newtons, 2 cinder block walls able to withstand 500,000 newtons, and a steel rebar reinforced cement wall able to withstand 750,000 newtons. Assuming the rock is spherical and K equals 0.24 kilograms per meter, how fast does John have to throw it to free the students? So we're sort of telling a story through these questions, and it keeps going. The city of Hampton is being shelled with chemical weapons by an entity claiming to work for the United Nations. Their base of operations in Calhoun County is approximately 100 square kilometers in area. Assuming a meteorite with a mass of 1,500 kilograms is set to collide with the base, how fast does it need to be traveling at the time of impact to ensure the total annihilation of the bastards that murdered my students? I love this piece. We have one last question. John needs to appear in his home 16,329,600 seconds ago. Assuming he can travel faster than the speed of light and arrive at places that before he leaves, neglecting air resistance and dissipating as much excess energy as possible on arrival as neutrinos. That's interesting. How fast does John need to move during a 60-second window in order to set things right? End article. So 16,329,600 seconds ago. Well, let's see. I'm going to pull up a calculator here. 16,329,600 seconds divided by 86,400 seconds in a day. I know that because I do a lot of DNS bullshit. That works out to 189 days. 189 days prior to February 21st, 2016 would be, let's see here, August 17th, 2015, when Foundation satellites detected an explosion with an estimated force equivalent to 20 tons of TNT in Calhoun County, centered at the home of John Perrin, a newly hired math and physics teacher at Hampton High. I love this piece. So I talked with Nameless Mediocre about this quite a bit on one particular piece here that they've gone back and made some changes to, and I hadn't seen them prior to this sort of reread of the work. So we are he's been trying to get around this whole like moving faster than light with Newtonian physics would, no matter the mass, no matter really anything, would cause the largest explosion ever seen on the planet. Probably enough to, I say enough to end the universe, because as you approach the speed of light, you gain mass, and to travel at the speed of light, you become the universe. That's my IT guy's theory of physics. So that's whatever. I probably would have avoided it altogether, and I indicated as much. Like, I would hand wave it away with some other spooky shit. There's a wormhole in fucking Arkansas, because how the fuck are you ever gonna check that in Calhoun County? There's like 300 people there. There's a traversable wormhole or a naked singularity, or something equally implausible as the faster than light aspect of the question. But what we've done, regardless of that little nitpick, is create a great piece of drama between this man in possession of an anomaly and the GOC. And doing it in this format really works well. I actually, this is not something I think I'd have ever really come up with. I really like the piece. This was an easy +1 as well. There are, I told him, and he agreed. He has a physics background, that you can very easily get shit on for using dodgy physics. But 2 writers do that at your own risk. I would definitely get the feedback from more experienced writers. That said, it's not really holding the work down. It's a +59. That might actually be high skip of the week. and well earned. This was well done, and for having your two first skips both come out in the positives and both be really compelling is a credit to you as a writer. So Nameless Mediocre, very well done. Now, last but not least, and I gotta say, if you have stuck around through this, which is the longest show I've done in almost 6 months, you are awesome. SCP-4913, titled 5-Star Redacted by The Blue Hour. This is also a first-timer piece. We have no images anywhere in the work, an object class of safe, and minimal procedures. The hotel containing the skip has been purchased by the Foundation. It's closed to the public. Our security force is to remain there at all times. The skip is described as room 126 in the Black Box Hotel in Spokane, Washington. After June 12, 1987, no individual has entered the room. No tests or experiments of any sort have been performed inside of it, despite multiple attempts to do so. When observed from the outside, the interior of it appears to be non-anomalous, albeit in an advanced state of disrepair, presumably due to no one having entered it since the 80s. No experiments conducted from outside the room have detected any anomalous properties of any kind. The Hume level inside of it is consistent with baseline reality. During the period in which our containment has been in play, we have attempted to enter it 6 times. All of these attempts have failed for various and often improbable reasons. So we speculate that the skip has one of 3 anomalous effects. One would be the ability to manipulate probability to prevent entry from it from occurring. We have 2, which is struck through, which is an antimemetic effect, which prevents individuals from enacting a plan to enter it. So we've ruled that out, apparently. Or 3, the ability to cause any individual who enters it to be retroactively erased from history. That's a bit of a reach, but okay. We have a discovery log. We have a little explanation that it was known to the hotel staff, the possible anomalous properties of this room, for about 7 years before the Foundation knew about it. 8:41 a.m., June 12th, 1987. A maid formerly employed at the hotel left the room after having cleaned it, locked the door behind her, and since this time, no one has been known to have entered the room. The staff of the hotel gradually became aware of the phenomenon, but weren't bothered by it. At first, it was believed to be a strange coincidence, and later became attributed to the room being, quote, haunted. So, we first came to the Foundation's attention. One of our agents stayed at the hotel on vacation and became aware of it by chance talking to hotel staff. He rented the room intending to enter it so as to determine if it really had anomalous properties, but changed his mind upon realizing it could contain unknown hazards. So there's one. At this time, the hotel was purchased by the Foundation. That was all it took, apparently. And a permanent Foundation presence was created. So we secure the location. We assign a researcher to the room and send a D-class that should be made to enter it. So we have a D-class sent to the site, but the researcher changed his mind and decided that animal testing should be performed first. That's 2. A dog was brought in, but the paperwork for the test was lost and it was never performed. That's 3. Upon learning of this, the researcher theorized that the skip possesses an antimemetic effect that makes entering it impossible. The researcher took monastic drugs, attempted to enter the skip himself, but the key to the room had been lost, so he couldn't open the door. That's 4. A proposal to force the door open was made, but then rejected on account of the unknown effects of damaging it. That's 5. A Foundation locksmith was brought in. The researcher developed a new theory on his anomalous properties, theorized the room's capable of causing reality shifts, which retroactively removed the individuals who enter it from history. So this would result in a timeline in which someone entering the room being erased along with that individual. That would make highly unlikely coincidence occur to prevent the entry to the anomaly, as only timelines where all attempts to enter the room fail would occur. So that's some heavy stuff. So we pick the lock. The researcher attempts to enter the room one more time. However, he became fearful of the possibility of being erased from history and decided against it. That's 6. It was then decided by a senior researcher that continued attempts to enter the room would be a waste of the Foundation's time and resources, so no new tests would be carried out. So we have an addendum. April 11th, 2001. There was one final unauthorized attempt to enter the room. It was an incident report it as a possible first-hand demonstration of the skip's anomalous effect. So we've got two agents, Arrowwood and Gray. They're guarding the room. And Arrowwood says, there's something weird about this place. Gray says, it's safe, though. Foundation's been guarding this hotel for years and nothing's happened. Then why are we here? Well, they want to make sure no one enters this room. They're worried about history getting rewritten or something along those lines. But how do they know what happens if you enter the room if no one's ever been there? Well, they don't. That's the point. They don't want to take the risk. So we've been wasting time guarding this place just because it might be an anomaly? I guess. What are you doing? Arrowwood walks over to the door to the room and reaches for the handle. And he says, we've got a little mix-up here. Arrowwood reaches over for the handle, but then Gray says, I'm going to test this out myself. So we've switched the names around here. That's something I didn't notice earlier. In any event, it doesn't really matter. It's Agent 1, Agent 2. So I'm going to test this out myself. I wouldn't try that. That's just a room. Arrowwood tries to turn the doorknob, but it doesn't move. Says it's locked. Gray says, I know. Arrowwood tries turning the doorknob several more times. Says, do you really think it erases you from history? Says, that's the theory, at least. If you go in there, that's it for you. After that, you're gone, like blowing out a candle. Then I'd be in this hallway having this conversation with someone else. He laughs. Says, of course, there's no way to tell if it really does that. It's just a theory for now. Tries to turn the handle one more time, causing the door to rattle, then takes a few steps back. Says, you okay? Says, yeah, I'm fine. The door's locked tight, though. And Gray says, actually, I think I know where the key is. He goes, it's fine. And Gray says, I'll give you $100 if you go in there right now. No. Are you scared? I'm not going in there. You were just going to go in there 5 seconds ago. Well, I changed my mind. So you are scared. Well, how about you go in there? You're the one who has the key. Can't do that. It's against the Foundation's guidelines concerning anomalies. But you said, forget what I just said. So let me get this straight. You were going to let me go into a place that this conversation's over. End log. Both agents were disciplined. End article. So I love the overwhelmingly strong implication that this room is entirely non-anomalous, and the Foundation bought a hotel in Spokane on one guy's premonition, and it is entirely likely we are protecting Bupkis. Like, there is absolutely nothing to be to be worried about. It's a great piece, just in that it works as a main lister. You could make that question on, is it a main list, is it a J? By sticking it in the main list, you give it more gravitas by saying, maybe this is anomalous. Maybe these theories aren't so far-fetched. The Foundation's full of pretty smart guys. They wouldn't come to something like this, without any good reason to do so. But maybe they did. I really like that about this piece. Leaving it open to interpretation is a really good way to go about this. This was a very easy +1 for me. And that's it for the recap. We're almost on out of here. Before we get there, though, weekly mailbag question. Matt W. asks, do you have any other or seen any other competition ideas you'd like to see the wiki try, and what makes them interesting? I actually had a proposal for a series of contests, and it was fairly ambitious, such to the point that I didn't want to run it on the wiki proper. I was actually going to set up an entirely separate wiki for it. In fact, the wiki is set up. I just never did it. So the idea was to iterate through skips quickly. I called it SC prompt. And the idea is that you're given a prompt, or, a team comes up with a prompt, and it would be a season-based thing that your ratings would aggregate over the course of a season, and but we would have a high number of very short turnaround seasons. And basically, you would get the prompt, you'd turn the thing around at about JamCon speed. You'd have 4 days or so. I believe I staggered it so it didn't matter what days of the week you would have free. You'd get a chance to participate in at least a few of the weeks of the contest regardless. And, get through your skips quickly, because I think there is more value in getting through a lot of them than laboring for months and months on a single one. If your goal is to improve as a writer in this format, I think you're far better served by iterating through a bunch of ideas quickly. And that was something that, I think it's a cool idea. The trouble is it shits up the wiki. It's a lot of potential articles. Like JamCon, we did 100 and something skips in like 6 days. So we don't really want to, set that pace for contests that run all the time, hence wanting to move it to a different wiki. Aside from that, there's a contest coming, and I'm not going to talk about it. I might talk about it in week 23, which will be Friday, June 7th. And if you thought this show was worth $1, patreon.com/scpcafe. Until week 23, keep reading, keep writing, and I'll see you on the other side.